for an inspection to happen? Not all of us, but the whole process.
Right, the whole process. So we've heard it anywhere from 1 to 6 weeks. And part of that is because they can come to you and they can inspect, and then they can tell you need to fix something, and then they come back when they feel like it. One of the reasons that Tina Kotek wants a waiver is so that the state can restrict those times. On top of that, one of the things is on the public record that we want to do once we get a waiver, and this is why we went neutral, even though I hated it, damn it, you shouldn't have to do this, damn it. I felt very strongly about that. But the reason I pulled back on that, a lot of it with the help of Jason and the board, was because we want to participate in the conversation. And one of the pieces of the conversation that is so important is, once we get the waiver, what do we want to do with it? The waiver says you do not have to follow the requirements of this federal Section 8 program in order to have a Section 8 program. So you can still get the federal dollars, but you don't have to follow the federal rules. And one of the things we want to have happen is free certification of landlords. So if the inspector at Home Forward comes to Jared and says, we like what you do in your units, we like how you treat the tenants, we like how you keep the property, you are pre-certified. Now, if he decides to rent to a Section 8 housing person, he can do it automatically with no inspection. So that's one of the reasons we want to be at the table, is to make that change once the waiver comes. Does that make sense? Okay. What else? What else did we hear in the bathroom? You weren't in the bathroom with us, sir. You look like you have a question.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I have a couple houses, family homes, and a couple years ago I looked in Section 8 and they told me I didn't qualify because my rent was too high and my security deposit. So I just need to know I'll tell you what I do and see if my understanding is correct, or if I was talking to someone saying I don't understand. I have a couple 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 1,550 square foot houses, $1,400 a month. I have a $2,100 security deposit as part of the incentive system. I want the house back in the condition I gave it to them. I've had problems in the past where I've had a $5,000 loss security deposit on that. At that time, it's about 5 years ago, it was $1,800, so that means $3,400 went out of my pocket, never to be recovered, because the tenant happened to be in the Navy, so therefore can't sue a military, active duty military. So what is?
So wait a minute, you're telling me that Section 8 program, like Home Forward came to you and said, you want to be a Section 8 program?
I called them up and asked.
You asked. And when you described to them, these are my requirements, this much income, this much say deposit, and they said you don't qualify?
Right.
Amen, brother, because most people would say, oh, well, you have to change that, and that's what we want to avoid. If the program says to you, we don't qualify, my people, which means our people can't qualify to live in your house, thank God that they told you, because a lot of times they just make you do it anyway, and that's what we're trying to avoid in this new program, am I right? That's what we're trying to avoid. We don't want them to say, oh, well, you need to change those requirements. We don't want them to say that.
So where do you find the guidelines that tell you?
That's a good question. And those are on a federal Section 8 guideline brochure. And you know what? Let's post that too. Is someone keeping notes of all the things I'm promising we're going to post? That would be good. We'll put that. That's a great question. We'll put that up there too. But one of the most important one of the most important things we can do is make sure that if you don't meet the requirements, you don't have to. Okay. Yes.
No minimum 1 year. That is most important.
So that's the biggest thing with the waiver. Besides pre-certification, the other thing is length of lease, because right now it's a year, and you guys do month to month. So one of the things that we've talked about, Phil and I in this group, now understand Phil and I have been part of this work. Phil and I have been part of this work group for a number of meetings, for a number of months. And one of the major things that we've talked about is the length of lease, and the fact that it adds flexibility not just for the landlord, but also for the tenant to have a month to month. There's some benefits, it's a leveling. And so the problem is, again, it's the federal program that requires the longer length, because they don't want to do the paperwork over and over again. So We don't want to do the paperwork over and over again either. And again, it goes back to if we get the waiver, we can have our state have different rules. All of you who have been involved with Home Forward for your Section 8 programs, raise your hand. Has it worked out okay?
No.
No. Yes, no. Yes, no. You're the only one who said no. How recently was yours, sir? How recently was yours?
About a year ago.
Okay, so in the last, I think it was actually 18 months, Home Forward got a waiver from the federal government. And so we've seen a lot of people saying this is going better. They got a waiver and they got to do different things. And it's approved. As a matter of fact, when Phil and I met privately with the speaker, we said, why wouldn't you be using the money for this program instead to help people out and learn how Home Forward does it and do it the same way they do? Because that's how much better they've gotten in the last year, at least. So, next, yes.
Thank you.
I have a fear, okay,
You have what?
of a fear. Let me tell you about this fear. that I
Oh,
have.
a fear.
That if this program goes through, I'm supposed to accept people who will qualify. They will trash my place. I will get paid for it. And so then what?
Yeah, I agree. We have a mitigation fund so that if for some reason someone trashes your house, you can get the money back. But I'm not-
Jack is suing. Try.
If you don't, they don't qualify, you don't have to accept them. That's the whole,
Really?
yes.
Right.
The way the
I
right
you
now.
guys make that choice. I thought you make the choice. I don't have a choice.
Right now, you have the choice.
You have the choice. If these people don't qualify, but then they come in and pay the difference, then I would have to accept it.
No, not if there's some reason, sorry, it's in my armpit. Not if there's some reason you would accept them if they're just a regular applicant. You cannot deny them just because part of their money is paid out of the voucher aid program. But you can't deny them for lack of ability to pay the rent or the rest of the
I
rent.
can't
You can't.
qualify them because they
You
cannot.
can. You can. You may. You may also disqualify them if they have a criminal history that you don't like. You may disqualify them if they've been evicted before.
I can't disqualify them if they don't have the income to
Yes, you
pay
can. If they can't pay the rent above what the voucher pays, you can disqualify them. Yes. And I'm trying to find the exact language in here. And if someone else asks me another question, I'll find it. Which means I won't really be listening to you, but that's okay.
The whole board is heading Washington.
Pardon
The
me?
whole board can take over Washington.
You know, I don't know. We talked about it.
This is part of the problem.
That's very true. And you know, actually, I was just asked if Home Forward was going to take over Washington County because part of the problem is the difference, right, in how they behave. This is one of the reasons that your board of directors decided to go neutral on this Section 8 bill. Because if we don't, the city of Portland is going to pass a Section 8 bill. We have a letter from the city of Portland saying that they support the Section 8 requirement. And every city will pass a different version. And you will have to apply in different ways with different rules for every city. So when your board considered what to do, we decided because it would make everything the same and make sure we had a seat at the table all the time, we were going to go neutral on this bill. Yes, Bob?
Here's why we failed
That's not a
miserably.
question.
No, here's why we failed miserably. Because this is the slippery slope toward rent control. By going along with this and going impotent, we'll have a worse bill next session.
Okay, I disagree. Go ahead, who's got another question? I fully disagree with that. One of the reasons that your board decided to go neutral on this bill is because then we can look at any legislator who brings forward another bill, you know, the bigger issue beyond this being the camel's nose under the tent, we're gonna go bigger next session. You know what? Anyone who does that, we can look at them and go, listen, we just helped pass a Section 8 housing bill by standing off this bill last session. We're done. We're going to make sure this program works before we move on to the next. So, Bob, I think you're wrong. I do not think this means that the worst is going to come next session.
Hey, it will, and you don't have the power to vote. When they get one thing, it's like in communism. when in the manifesto it says that you should learn in college, when I see steel, I stop. If I see mush, I won't vote. That's Karl Marx.
I know Karl Marx. Yes.
I have very great concern about the bill having to do with consideration of criminal history.
Yeah, okay,
To
so
me,
then,
if you have a criminal history, that indicates that I need to be more concerned about whether I can trust you.
me too. Central 91, we are the only group of all landlord groups and all tenant groups who oppose that bill. We're the only one. And I've tried, and when I couldn't get more people to care about the ramifications of that bill, I tried to just tear apart the committee. And I said, look, you guys, look what you're doing. Look where you're going by saying that criminal history doesn't matter. Now, they argue that, first of all, the way the bill is written, you can in fact consider anything that's a drug crime, a person crime, or some kind of financial fraud identity theft crime. Outright, you can consider any of those. Of what's left in the crimes, they say if you decide as a landlord that it affects the livability of your space, then you can consider it. That's what my problem is. That's a gray area, and you know what that means? Anytime you use it, you're going to get sued. That's what I don't like. But it doesn't say you cannot consider criminal history at all. Sex crimes, people crimes, identity theft, and financial crimes, you can consider. It's not as bad as it could have been, but I still don't like it. And I don't like you're told what you can and cannot consider because you're business people and you should be able to consider whatever you want.
One of the ones that concerns me most is alcohol crimes, because that people who have problems there have problems everywhere.
So it's interesting you say that because when I testified on the bill, and I had Phil and I collectively talked to most of the legislators about the bill, and I talked to every committee person for the bill. And I used two examples. I said, where does the repeat drunk driver fall here? Where does the identity theft person fall here? I can consider a sex crime or a drug crime or a person crime. Those are just as important to me because as a small landlord, I don't know if the person's partying and driving away from my property every day and I'm going to be responsible for it. I don't know if the person is stealing the neighbor's mail. Do you know what happened? The night before they did amendments, the night before the hearing they did amendments that took the identity theft piece out. The coalition we were part of and didn't tell us in an attempt to take away from our argument. But the alcohol piece, so that piece is gone, but the alcohol piece is still there. And I don't know where it falls, but when I talked to legislators about it, every one of them said, you get to make that decision. And the ORHA, the Oregon Rental Housing Association, said the reason they liked the bill was because of the provision that says you can in fact consider other things if you think it's of concern to the livability of your area. I didn't want them to do that. I didn't want them to say, I did not want them to say, you can do all these things and the rest you can do if you think they're right. I wanted them to say, you cannot do these things, period, because then the rest we can do without being sued. ORHA did not agree with me. They wanted the language the way it was. We butt heads, and I think I'm right.
You just said that we could be sued.
That's my
You
feeling.
said that.
That's
The
my
sentence
feeling.
before, you said we
Yes.
could be sued.
Yes. We're talking about a different bill now because it's a gray area. So if you say, you know what, I decided this guy. So if I said, I decided to deny rent to this man because he's a multiple drunk driver and I don't want that coming in
And
and out.
we can be sued for that.
Right.
My feeling is because you get to decide whether or not you think that affects the livability of your unit, because you get to decide that, that also means you could be sued for deciding that. It's not black and white. It's the gray area I don't
So
like.
you guys can sue us for that.
Who's you? Who's you guys?
She's on our side.
It sounds like you're neutral and accepting all this.
Okay, we're on a different bill now. We're on a different bill. This is Senate Bill 91.
Okay,
And
well,
I'm totally opposed to that. We are, as a group, totally opposed to that. Okay,
Is
yes.
it too late to do something about that?
We're working really hard to do something about it.
I mean, you need bodies down there?
Yeah, definitely. Yes, no, you already asked the question, I'm sorry.
Supposing that the state bill is signed into law, what stops the city of Portland and Multnomah County with imposing a few extra restrictions on us separately that are not included in the state bill?
Nothing, although there is going to be an attempt to have preemption language in this bill that says that nobody else can have a different law on this issue.
Yeah, well, if they can control it.
Yes.
It seems to me that Habitat for Humanity, which is, I think, a pretty successful organization, makes their recipients very responsible for what they earn. And what I missed in Tina's presentation tonight was somebody who asked something about what I hear a lot of us in this room saying, what about responsibility for our needs? Who is going to take responsibility? And her comment, I think I heard it correctly, was that's one of the things that Section 8 doesn't have money to provide right now, and that's training for recipients of vouchers. So if there is not money to train people to become our tenants, what makes us think this is a good idea?
Okay, so I think the difference is that she doesn't think there's money up front to better train people, although that's really a goal of hers. So what she did is the best she could, she fixed it on the other end by making it so there's a fund that you can apply for money for damages, for lost rents. I think that that's the best she felt like she could do at this point. However, one of the provisions of the waiver is that we get to do training. Here's an issue that really relates to that. We don't have any vouchers in Oregon that go unused. Do y'all understand that? I mean, any thought on Tina Kotek or anybody else's part that gosh, there's not enough housing for all these people is wrong. But what she wants to do is to make sure that no one's ever turned away. You get a voucher, you have it for 3 months, you can't find any place to rent, that's the turnaway rate. She doesn't want there to be a turnaway rate. So what we explained to her, Phil and I explained to her, is the turnaway rate is based on the fact that you send these people have no business renting in the first place, which is what you just said.
Yes.
She acknowledged that, and she said one of the things she wants to make sure to do is to better have those people equipped, background checked, credit history checked. She wants the money to be used to get those people ready to rent so that we don't have to turn them away in the first place, and that the people who are not rentable don't ever come to us. So it's in her thought process. It's not that it's not there, it's in the thought process. It's not perfect. It's not perfect. Guys, it's not only is it not perfect, oh gosh, up to 2 weeks ago, I was against this bill. But it's gonna pass. It's the Speaker of the House's bill. Do you know how much power she has to leverage anyone else's take-home bill and say, oh, I'm not gonna even let that come to the floor? It's going to pass. So if it's going to pass, let's be at the table to make sure it's the best it can be when it passes and after it passes. Okay, no, what are you saying? What are you saying?
I'm saying if that's the case, it's going to happen. What I am feeling from a few of the people that I've sensed motion from tonight is we're not behind this bill.
We don't support this
So
bill.
why aren't we letting her know that? No matter how good it is and how much work she's done for us.
Is this the first you've heard of this bill?
No.
No, it's not the first you heard of this bill, but you know how many people came to testify against this bill? Even though you guys all got a legislative alert about it? 2 of us. Two. So we were opposed to the bill. I'm not saying we're supporting the bill. We went to neutral, and that's the very best we can do, and so that we can keep having a conversation. Lynn.
Okay, so as a board, we've been talking about this a long time, and maybe I can just put it in plain English. It's the lesser of 2 evils for us to go neutral on this. If we do go neutral, then later on, Cindy has the power and will to sit down and help make those amendments that are gonna happen. If we didn't go neutral and we kept fighting it, the city of Portland is gonna put out something, even if this bill didn't pass, which is going to pass. So we want to be at that table. Otherwise, we might get much worse from Portland and the other cities will follow. Did I say that right?
Yeah, you said it right. You guys, I'm not saying this is a great bill. I'm saying that politically we've had to play our cards the way we think we should. Me and one other real estate investment group remained opposed to this bill. Every other landlord group was for it. Or neutral.
You know, I said this, but I'd be willing to come down on Wednesday nights to work the telephone tree, call landlords to get a cadre, troops on the ground, to oppose different bills, support different bills, whatever. But I've never got a call from this group that, hey, Bob, that's a great idea. Let's send troops down. And another thing, I said I would support, I would even be willing to run a political action committee where we put money, solicit members for money, and contribute to different legislative campaigns. And you know how much I've ever heard from this group? It's like a big show.
Okay, so two things really quick. First of all, Bob, you don't have the internet, so we do communicate. You guys all get membership information from us? Yes, it does happen, number one. Number two, a PAC? Gosh, darn it, how many of you guys have an extra $100 sitting around? Great, Bob, give it to a legislator, let me know who it was so I can find them. The rest of you know I know don't. I'm not ever gonna ask you to contribute to a political action committee. We cannot make the dent that other people do. We are not going to come in with a $50,000 PAC and make a huge difference.
We don't have to. Some of these races are so tight. Just
Bob, I've been doing this for 23 years. In the last cycle, there were 5 really tight races in the House. I gave to all of the losers. No, 4 of the losers, 1 of the winners. And the 4 losers were incumbents. That's how strong the political action committees are on sides that don't necessarily agree with us. And I have a big PAC. I have a really big PAC.
What PAC is that?
Yes.
Just kind of an amplification of my question. So you talked about mitigation. So I had a $5,000 security deposit pick up $1,800. The 3,200 would, for the speaker's mitigation, pay that in lump sum, or is it doled out over 12 or 24 months?
So you have to do the lawsuit just like you would normally do. The problem is you usually file a small claims, a small claims court claim,
Right.
and then you don't ever get any money because it has to come from the person who didn't have any money to begin with. In this case, after the small claims court rules in your favor, the mitigation fund pays you in total. And right now that's up to $5,000. Yes. Yes.
Does this bill allow for a pet fee charge?
Has nothing to do with this particular bill, but in Senate Bill 91, the one that had to do with the criminal fees issue, the landlord-tenant coalition bill, it does in fact change it so you can now charge a pet fee. Not a pet fee, a fine for non-compliance with your pet rules. So you don't charge a fee up front. What you do is you fine people now for not complying with your pet rules.
And how do you get that? After the
Same
fact?
way you fine them for anything. You attach it to the rent. Oh, yes. Anything you do with the current applicant, you can do with the Section 8 applicant. It's exactly all she, Tina Kotek insists, and I have her on the record a gazillion times, holding the record button. She insists. She just doesn't want you to say Section 8 applicants need not apply. She wants them to be treated the same as anyone else.
Thank you, Cindy.